Good morning. Today's Monday, the third day of Tishrei. I hope everyone had a great Rosh Hashanah. And we certainly all will have a great year. Tovshin Pei Aleph, Ta'esh, Shenas, Pelois, Arenu. Hashem will show us great miracles. Today is Tzom Gedalia, the fast of Gedalia. And Mitzvah Hashem, Mashiach Kam, this fast will also begun. Will be only simchas. Today we are completing the 19th chapter in the Tanya in the Igeret HaKodesh, the holy letters of the Alter Rebbe. And the part that we read today, the last part of this chapter, is actually an addition that was added much later. And that was, but it has a similarity to the beginning of the chapter. And being that we missed a little bit in the days of Rosh Hashanah, we could not record. So just wanted to review a little bit of what we learned in the beginning of this chapter. And Alter Rebbe asked a very interesting question, and that is what it says in the Kabbalah regarding Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, that he was able to see, and only until a certain level, which in the Kabbalistic terms, it's called the Netzach Hod Yesod Malchus. We have the 10 attributes in each world. We have the 4 worlds. Atzilus is the world of emanation, the Bria, world of creation, Yetzirah, world of formation, Asiya, world of action. So Moshe Rabbeinu was only able to see in the Netzach Hod Yesod, and which is Hod Yesod Malchus, which are the 4 last levels. And Alter Rebbe asked, how is it possible that if Moshe Rabbeinu was not able to see the higher levels than that, and yet we find in the Kabbalistic books, in the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, who described in depth about the levels which is much higher than that, levels of Chachma, the wisdom, the beginning of the 10 attributes, and even higher than that. Is it possible that the Kabbalists were able to achieve more than Moshe Rabbeinu? Obviously not. And Alter Rebbe explained, to explain this, he explained the difference between seeing and hearing. So seeing, obviously, is something which is in a greater level than hearing. As they say, seeing is believing. When you see something, nobody can convince you otherwise. If you saw something happening, then it's by you, it's an absolute. It is certain by you. But when you hear something, it's hearsay. You hear one thing, you can be very much convinced that what you heard is true. But nevertheless, it could be somebody else coming with a stronger argument, and it will shatter your first understanding. So the hearing is not as powerful as seeing. But this is also has an effect, and also on the law, that it says in the Jewish law, it says ein eid nasa dayan. A witness is not allowed to become a judge. If a person witnessed a certain event, a crime or whatever, that person is not allowed to reside as a judge in the case, judging that person. Why? Because a judge is supposed to be impartial. He's supposed to be objective, and he's supposed to see both sides. But if the judge saw what he saw, he will never be unbiased. It will always be that whatever he saw, nothing can shake it. So therefore, seeing, when you see something, and has a very strong impression on you. It also, this is all that. So this is the difference between what Moshe Rabbeinu and what the other sages, the prophets, the Kabbalists. So Moshe Rabbeinu was able to see, but you know what was he able to see? Only the lower levels. Because in seeing, on the one hand, we say seeing is stronger than hearing, but on the other hand, there is also something that hearing has an advantage over seeing, and that is when you see, you can only see something which is physical. You don't see the spiritual. When you hear something more spiritual. The sound waves, for example, you cannot see. You cannot see the sound waves, but you hear the sound waves. So hearing is a tool that is able to reach higher levels, more spiritual levels, but yet you do not connect with it as you do when seeing something. So seeing has an advantage of the connecting, of becoming one with what you see. Really, and the hearing is, yes, you hear higher levels, you hear something more spiritual, but you do not connect to it as much. And that is what they say, the difference between Moshe and the prophets. Moshe was able to connect in a level of seeing, but yet it was in the lower levels. So obviously in the higher levels, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to hear much more than the Kabbalists. And the Kabbalists, when they say that they were talking about the higher levels, they were only talking in the level of hearing it, understanding it. And that is why I say, Chacham Adif Menavi, that a wise person is greater than a prophet, because with the wisdom is able to reach levels which is much higher than what the prophet is able to achieve through his prophecy. And today the Alter Rebbe continues in Tanya. By the way, before we go to that, this has also an implication in our day-to-day service. It's not just talk about spiritual, mystical things. It is something that really, really affects us. As the Rebbe Rashab said, when a person sees something, the seeing has a very deep effect on the person. That is why it is so important to be very careful what we look at. When we look at something which is not kosher, is not nice, not clean, whatever, one can say, oh, what's the big deal? I'm only seeing, I'm not touching, I'm not doing anything, it's just seeing. Here comes Chassidus and explains that seeing has such a deep impression, and that is an impression that lasts for a lifetime. And if a person sees something and it doesn't affect him, he says, oh, that's no big deal. I'm not changed. Doesn't impress me what I see. That is even a sign that the situation is much worse, because the person becomes so used to do something that see something which is not okay. And then you say, okay, so doesn't affect me. It's because you're already used to it. That means that a person is already connected to it. That only something which is new, which is something you're not used to, you get affected. So that's why the Rebbe Rashab explains how it's important to watch our eyes, to watch what we see, to look only on kosher and good and positive things. And today's Tanya, the Alter Rebbe continues with the letter, as we said before, the letter that was added, and the letter that is talking and describing the oisios adibu, the letter of speech and the letters of thoughts. Because in thoughts, we also have letters, as we'll soon see. So let's look inside. Says the Alter Rebbe, ha'oisiyos haniglois lanu hein b'maise dibur u'machshava. The letters that are revealed to us exist, and they exist in three categories: in the action, speech, and thought. What does it mean, action, speech, and thoughts in letters? So the Alter Rebbe explains. The maise in tmunas ha'oisios shebiksava shuri shebesefer Torah. The action of the letters is the actual shape of the Ashuri script. This is the writings, the sort of the calligraphy that writings, but the way it is in the Torah, shebesefer Torah, those special writings. This is the action of the letters, the actual physical shape. And the physical shape also, as we learned in the previous parts of the Tanya, they have meaning, they have significance. For example, the letter Hey, we said has a width, has a length, talking as representing machshava, thought, speech, and action. Action is that little dot of the Hey, which is separated then from the speech and thought and so on. Then you have oisiyos hadibur, and you have the speech part of the letters. Nechkokos behevel v'koil. They are engraved in the breath and the voice. Amischalek lechov beis chalokim shoinim ze mize betzurasam. And they are divided into 22 letters, 22 parts that are different in the shape, in the form. That means when you speak, so you have the shape of the letters and you have the actual pronunciation of each letter. Shehi, and that is the speech of the letters. And this is the pronunciation and the utterances of the 22 letters, and that is in every language. Because there is no difference between the holy tongue, the holy language, and other languages, when it comes to the actual pronunciation of the letters. I mean, you have in Hebrew is Aleph, in English is A. It sounds the same. Only the combination, when you combine the different letters, they make up different words in different languages. Yes, there are unique, subtle pronunciation that are unique to each language. But in general, the basis of all of the languages are the same. Now you have the letters of thoughts. You have also the letters, the thoughts of the letters, the letter of thought. They're again also in any language that a person may think. The words and the letters of that language and its letters. Shehein Chav Beis Levad. So you have letters in action, which is the shape. You have letters in speech, which is the actual pronunciation of the letters. And you have letters in thought, because when you think, you also think with letters. You also think with words. And these words are also made out of 22 letters. Now he says, however, when it comes to the thoughts, in thought itself, you have the action of thought and the speech of thought and the thoughts of thought. That's what Alter Rebbe is going to say now. Now in thought there are three kinds of letters. Because when you see in a Sefer Torah the shape of the letters, so when you look at the letters in the Sefer Torah, these shape of the letters are now pictured in your thoughts. So what is pictured in your thoughts when you look at the letters? Number one is the action of the thoughts. It is pictured the shape of the letter. This is called the action in thought. So meaning the manner in which thought envisions the letter of actual, and the letters of actual handwritten script. Okay? וכן, כאשר שומע אויסיוס הדיבור, הן נרשומות במחשבתו ומהר בהם. It says, likewise, when one hears the letters of speech, they become inscribed in his thought, and he meditates upon them. וזה נקרא דיבור שבמחשבה. Now this part is called the speech of thought. When you have, so when you look at the letters, you have the action of the letters. When you think about the letters that you heard, the words that you heard, they become the speech of your thought. And this is connected with the level of the world of Yetzirah. As we said, you have Bria, Yetzirah, Siyaf, creation, formation, and action. So the action is connected with the world of action. The speech is connected with the world of formation. It forms the letters. Now the letters of thoughts alone, without any meditation of the letters of speech, they are called the thought or in thought. What does it mean? Sometimes you have an idea, you just think about something, but you don't have the letters of in what way, how to bring out the idea in speech. So if someone is going to ask you to explain your idea, you're not going to be able to bring it down in letters because you didn't bring it down in letters. Yet you just have the idea. So the idea itself, the machshava, the thinking of the idea, is called the thought within thought. That is called Bchinas Bria. This is connected related to the world of Beria, of creation. The Alter Rebbe continues, now these letters of speech in the thoughts, they receive the letters of the actual speech, they come into being and receive the life force from those very same letters that are in thought. So when you speak, what are you speaking? You speak words that you were thinking. So the speech is created in the thought. You think letters, then you speak the letters. However, says the Alter Rebbe, sometimes it doesn't work that way. Why? It says, sometimes a person may speak one thing, and he thinks something else. It can happen sometimes. You talk to a person, and that person is talking to you, and then all of a sudden it says, where was I? He's talking and he's thinking about something else. It happens sometimes also when during davening. They say there was a rabbi came over to one of his congregants after he finished the Amidah. He said, Shalom Aleichem. So why you give him Shalom Aleichem? He says, because I realized when you were praying Shemona Esrei, you were traveling to China, you're traveling to India, you were all over the world. So he came back, he gave them Shalom Aleichem. Sometimes we say the words of davening, but our thoughts are somewhere else. So how could it be? If we say that the words of speech are created in the words of thoughts, then how is it possible that you are thinking one thing and speaking something else? Says the Alter Rebbe, very simple. הרי אינו יכול לדבר כי אם אויסום דיבורים וצירופים שכבר דיברם, והיו במחשבת בפעמים רבס מועד. You can only speak of words that you already thought before in the past. And you thought about it many times. So if it's there in your thoughts, Vanisha bediburim etzirufim elo areshimu shebemachshava, and now in those words and combination there remains a vestige of the thoughts. Shenichnas b'empoim rabbis that entered into his that entered into his thoughts many times. So that thought that you thought before in the past are now animating the word that you're speaking. So when you speak, you cannot speak without thinking. But even though you're thinking about something else, but the word that you're speaking now, you already thought about it in the past. Now he goes back to connect to what we said before about Moshe Rabbeinu, and about the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to see only in the lower levels. So he says, this is the B'chinas HaChayrayim V'chitzonis Nehi Mi'partzof HaElyon Shenichnas B'tachton. This, in terms of the Sephiris, is the inmost aspect of the externality of the Netzach, Hoid, Yesod, which is the three lower levels of the attributes. Mi'partzof HaElyon Shenichnas B'tachton. And this is from the visage of the higher realm that enters into the lower one, and this serving him as this serves him as b'chinas moichin. It should be like a moichin is the intellect, the chayus and vitality, the brain and life force, kanoida as is known. So this explains why Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was able to see where? In the lower levels. But within these lower levels, he had the thoughts from before, from the much, much, much greater levels. And that animates and goes inside these lower levels. So this is the end of today's Tanya Shir, and it is the end of chapter 19. So thank you for joining. We should be Gemar Chasim Ateva, good Giben Shtio, will come again tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. All the best.